Okay.
Hello. Round two.
Yes.
We just, anyways, yeah, we're trying to figure out technology here. It's certainly not my strong suit.
No. No, it is not. That's fair to say.
Yeah.
Um,
So here we go.
Yeah, we'll do it all over again.
We'll do it all over again. It's fine. Hi.
This is John.
I'm Jenna.
We're a husband and wife duo.
We are.
Some would say that she's my better half,
Aw,
and they would be correct.
that's nice, bud. That's a good foot to start the podcast off on.
Yeah. And we'll just start with quick background of who you are, who I am, and what our goal would be to get out of this podcast for us and for the listener.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm Jenna. Sometimes you might hear John occasionally call me Gert or Big Gert, which would be my alter ego. My background is I'm a paramedic. I've been a paramedic in the GTA for just over a decade now, which is so crazy to think about. I also work as a respiratory therapist. Many people probably don't know what that is, but that's okay. We'll get into that over time. And I think the reason that we wanted to start this podcast, or this has really been sort of like a long time in the making, a long time we've sort of been talking about this. And really the thought for this came in the early days of the pandemic. So probably early 2023. We live in West End, Toronto. We love our neighborhood. Shout out to Parkdale. And in the early days of the pandemic, I would come home from long shifts, heavy days, emotional days, obviously in a time where we couldn't see, certainly not our family, not a lot of our friends outside of a couple close neighbors and maybe a couple other people in healthcare who were just in it as well. And our one common thing or our one constant that we would do pretty much every day, rain or shine, snow, whatever, we would go for walks in like our beautiful neighborhood down by Lakeshore, and we would just talk about our days and talk about life and talk about the news and talk about what was going on in the world. And eventually, or often enough, I guess, there would be days where we were like, shit, that was pretty deep. Like, I wish we had have recorded that, or what would it be like if we had a microphone between us while we were having these conversations? And I guess that's sort of where the spark started to maybe start this podcast. And again, whether it starts and ends with just voice recordings that we keep for ourselves, or whether it's something that branches out and eventually we share with friends or family, I think now 3-ish years later, the time has just finally come where we've thought about it enough and talked about it enough and manifested enough where it's happening. And actually right now we're on vacation in Cartagena, Colombia, the north part of Colombia. We're doing a 4-week trip here right now. The first week we spent in Mexico with some of our closest friends, watching beautiful friends of ours get married, which was great. And the last 3 weeks we are sort of on our own little adventure, and it just kind of seemed like the right time to start, because at some point, you talk about things for long enough and then you just have to start somewhere. And what we were talking about a few minutes ago, just with issues with technology, we were trying to get some stuff to work, and it wasn't working and it was frustrating. So we're currently using an Apple voice note right now. Because you just have to start.
Yes.
Can
I tell people about myself?
You can. I talk a lot, so go ahead.
So my name's Jonathan Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
36 years old and have been doing in-home personal training for the last 12 years. So it started, I guess, when I was 24 or so. And I went to school at Humber College for fitness and health promotion. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point other than just something that I was kind of passionate about, and that was, health and fitness and working out and helping people. And then I got a job as an in-home personal trainer, so I go to people. I literally visit people's houses or condos or workplaces, and I spend an hour with them, and husband and wives, just individuals, sometimes teenagers, sometimes 84-year-olds, everything in the middle. And I was doing that, I still do it, but I was doing that for about 6 or 7 years. And then just as I get more and more accustomed to failing with people, trying to help people, and just witnessing people starting to make changes in their life and then sabotaging it, or having them ghost me and being like, okay, what the hell am I doing wrong? So just lots of failure and lots of just desire for me to improve my skill set, which was more of the mental skill set, and learning those tools to help people. So I started to watch videos and YouTube and Tony Robbins, and then did some NLP certifications, which I'll talk about, and life coaching certifications, and just lots and lots of reading and watching and practicing those things. And I've had my own life coaching business for about 5 years now. And most of my time is still spent personal training. Maybe it's like 90% training, 10% life coaching. But the goal is to kind of switch that. And the reason I did it is just because if I spend an hour with somebody or 3 hours a week, that still leaves them 23 hours a day, or that still leaves them 165 hours a week by themselves. So if I can actually provide them with the tools and make those like deeper changes, the mental changes, where it's like, okay, well, if you really want something, and then we start to progress towards it, but then you keep sabotaging yourself, obviously me just showing up for 1 hour a week doing the same personal training shit's not gonna cut it. So that's why I started to do the deeper stuff. And for this podcast, so I hope that can share my expertise in those tools. Jenna can share her expertise in life and death and dealing with all of that, and just kind of bouncing ideas off each other. And like the name for this podcast is the instruction manual, meaning the human instruction manual, where you go through pages, and that's what I think people will soon come to find out as the years go on, is that there's financial education where people are taking more ownership of their finances and not just listening to some person at a bank. There's that nutritional ownership where you're not just listening to the Canada Food Guide and going like, oh, I need my breads and I need my dairies. That's bullshit, in case you didn't know. And people are taking more ownership with that. And this is kind of the emotional intelligence, hopefully providing you tools to take ownership of that. And most of this stuff are things that we learned, and we just get to pass them along. So that's good, because it also takes the pressure off of us, because this isn't our stuff. This is a lot of other people's stuff that have been doing it for years and years and years. We just get to help share it. So that's, I think,
absolutely.
Quick background and quick.
Well, and going back to, first of all, I think it's really interesting because, in these walks and talks that we would have, sort of without consulting, there was a time a couple months ago where we were like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going on this trip. We're going to do this first episode when we're on the trip. Have you thought at all about what we would call it? And actually both of us, without consulting one another, had come up with a variation of the name, the instruction manual, which I thought was kind of cool and just organic. And for myself, just going back to talking about those early times of the pandemic, I mean, you have said so many times that I give you too much credit, perhaps sometimes. But really, I have to thank you for how much you did help me in those early times of the pandemic, because healthcare is rough on a good day. Sometimes it was certainly rough in the early months of 2020.
Still is.
But one sort of, I guess, gift that you've given me is teaching me some of these tips and tricks and tools about human behavior. Because the medicine, I mean, you can teach a lot of people how to do skills, right? Like you can teach people how to do an IV, you can teach people how to do CPR, you can teach people how to drive an ambulance, or, insert any skill. Skills are easy to teach. But there's so much about just human interaction that has helped me so much day to day, and really I owe that learning to you, because it does make my job easier day to day, whether that's learning or having had learned how to interact verbally better with a team. Really, I think the biggest thing is just interacting more efficiently with patients and the family members of patients, truly, right? Because I think so many times one thing I see at work is people take things personally. And how can you not when you show up at somebody's house or you show up in somebody's hospital room and you're just there trying to tell somebody, and you have a family member that's just yelling at you, or a patient that's treating you like shit, and you're like, listen, man, my day's hard enough. I'm just here because I'm trying to help you and I'm trying to do my best, But when you learn how to take things less personally, and when you learn why people are acting the way that they are, it gives you so much more empathy for understanding that they are not their actions, but their actions are a result of their emotions, and understanding why they might be emotionally reacting to something the way that they are. And once you can understand that, then you don't have to react to how they're...
You can respond.
You can respond. You don't have to react, and then it makes the whole, like, the amount of times tools that you have taught me have de-escalated a situation really before it even had the chance to escalate has just made my interactions with coworkers and patients and family members of patients so much better. And despite the fact that you say I give you too much credit, it's been exceptionally valuable to me over the last 3 years in particular. So if we can share that with some of our friends and family members, and then it's a ripple that moves outwards. It starts with you, and it starts with me, and then you teach somebody, and then they teach somebody, and then they teach somebody else, and it just ripples outward to hopefully make life better and easier for so many more people.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do here, is, me just going one-on-one with coaching clients or personal training clients. That's like a little pebble I can drop in a pond, and then you being able to go basically getting calls and working one-on-one or spreading it with your coworkers, that's a bigger pebble. But if we can record these things and have it, compound, and then just get that huge stone that we can drop in the pond, and it just ripples outward. People need it. Humans need it.
Now more than ever.
Yes. And just these last 3 years, people need it more. It's no secret that emotions, anger, depression, anxiety.
Oh God, the anxiety.
Gambling, addiction, all those.
Sports betting is legal in Ontario, baby.
Yeah, all those things that people, they don't give you any instruction manual for these things. And I think a big thing that we will talk about a lot is that, just like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, that emotions lead to behaviors. Well, what comes before emotions? And that is, we use emotions to meet certain needs. And if you can figure out what those needs are, which we're probably going to talk about like right now. But if you truly believe that you're using emotions to fill up certain gas tanks, and then you figure out what gas tanks you have, then you get to choose how you fill those up. You get to choose what gas you put in them. You get to choose to put $4 of diesel in a premium car if you want to and see how that goes. Or you can put, $75 of regular dude.
Premium dude.
Yeah.
We also grew up in an age of like early Simpsons, so probably a lot of referencing of that.
But just learning that we use emotions to meet certain needs, and emotions include depression and emotions include anxiety, but you don't have to stay in those emotions forever. And we can use different behaviors that empower you as opposed to cripple you. And we'll get into those 6 gas tanks right now because
Why don't you go through I think certainly something that's helped me, but I think the cornerstone of what it sounds like you start with a lot of your life coaching clients is explaining and breaking down to them what these 6 human needs are. So maybe you want to go through that to start.
Well, 6 human needs is a behavior model, and I'm sure you've done a lot of behavior models, or you've seen a lot, whether at work or human resources or in high school. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then there's all the stuff you do at work with like the different colors and personality tests and all that stuff.
Right.
There doesn't have to be just one universal behavior model. There's spiral dynamics, that's a good one we'll talk about too. There doesn't have to be just one model that's right and universal. It all kind of depends on the lens of population you're looking at. If it's a huge population, if it's the individual, if it's a certain circumstance, they can all be true. They can all be maybe not as true in varying circumstances. But this one just seems to make the absolute most sense, and it is almost like you become psychic and can predict future behaviors of both yourself, and it just literally explains everything, and it's called the 6 Human Needs. Anthony Robbins created this. He's a huge inspiration for myself and for millions of people. He's kind of like the original life coach, and definitely the most publicized and probably the most successful one, at least financially and impact on the world. And those 6 human needs, they're broken down into 2 different categories. There's the personality needs, which are 4, and then there's the spiritual needs, which are 2. So altogether you get 6. And the needs of the personality, there's significance, there's variety, there's certainty, and there's connection/love. And these first 4, we'll go through these. We're probably literally going to talk about them every single episode.
Or reference them at least.
But these 4, significance, the need to feel special, your life has meaning, you're different from others, whether that's you meet that through getting your body tattooed so it's super unique, whether you get that through making the most money so you can buy the most things, whether you get that through having a job that makes you feel special and makes you feel like you can contribute, or education, whatever. Like there's so many different ways you can feel significant. But you're gonna meet that need no matter what in some aspect. I guarantee you, even if you just heard about these 6 human needs, you're already doing this stuff. So if you're already doing it, you might as well, if you're already filling this tank up, you might as well figure out what kind of gas it actually takes and what kind of gas station you'd like to stop at. If it's just like some rundown self-serve where it's like some sketchy guy out front, or if it's a full serve like Esso and the price is right. But you're already meeting these needs. Let's figure out why and what kind of gas you'd like to put in it. So that's significance. Then there's variety, which is the spice of life. the need for change, the need for something different, whether that's traveling, whether that's different Uber Eats, whether that's different sexual partners, whether that's just closing TikTok, opening TikTok, closing TikTok, opening Instagram. That's obviously not the best way to meet your variety, but you're doing it for a big reason for that variety. You're going to meet that no matter what. And then there's certainty, which is the one that is pretty much driving most people these days in uncertain times, economically, COVID-wise, health and physical health. Certainty means control, the need to understand why things are happening, what's going to happen, that you have, physical safety, certainty, that the roof over your head is going to hold up.
The need to be right.
The need to be right, to be in control. There's good ways to meet these, like buying, having a well-diversified portfolio, or if you just put all your money into one, like, risky stock, and if that stock fails, your whole portfolio goes to shit. You want to have nice diversified portfolio of certainty, which means maybe you have a certain routine every day, maybe you do take care of your finances, maybe you do start your day with a coffee, maybe you start it with 4 cigarettes and yelling at other drivers. Anger is a
form of certainty.
Is an effective way to get certainty. And the easiest kind of connection, maybe for you people, to get it through your heads is
great start, babe.
Just your anger. I can pretty much guarantee the anger you've been feeling over these last 3 years and how prevalent and frequent it has been, probably a lot more, right? And because there's so much other uncertainty in the world, so when uncertainty happens externally, then you start to crave certainty to get it back, and anger, blaming others, going out for riots and protests and burning shit and all that stuff. That those are ways to get certainty. The same way that anxiousness, anxiety, that's kind of a way to get certainty as well, because you're just going through everything that could happen or may happen or has already happened and just replaying it and trying to tie up all these like loose strings and loose ropes to try to get some more certainty in your life. And obviously that's not good enough. That hasn't been working. And then the last one of the personality trait or the personality needs is connection and love, which is connecting with others, connecting with other humans, connecting with, your pet, your dog, connecting with yourself. Depression, that has obviously gone through the roof these days as well. Depression is a way to meet your connection by connecting with yourself. So over the 3 years or the first couple where you can't connect with others, but you still have this need to meet, so then you're going to connect with yourself by using depression. And you use emotions. Yes, there's legit depression and requires maybe medication. There's legit forms of depression. A lot of it is just people staying in that emotion and using it for connection or using it for certainty. A lot of these actions, a lot of emotions can meet numerous needs. So when I was using depression, and I will use it again at certain points if I don't make sure I meet my needs in good ways, I always talk about this with my clients. I would use depression because it met variety. It would give me a change of my state. So if things are going great and I'm happy, then I would use depression to change my state. So that's variety. I would use it for connection, because if I don't get it elsewhere, if I'm not connecting with my wife or my friends, then I can connect with myself. So then it's meeting my connection need. For certainty, absolutely, it's meeting my certainty need, because it's like a safety net of life. I get to kind of hit the eject button and just push people away. If I start getting too close to people, I would use depression to kind of dig myself into a hole, and then I get to kind of just go into my safe little space. And then significance as well. If you talk to most depressed people, which is, millions and millions of people, they're gonna say that you don't understand me. No one understands me. You don't know what's going on with me. You don't feel how I feel. It gives you a sense of significance, that you're special, that you can feel deeper than others. You feel deeper, that you can feel the world's pain. All those things, these emotions, these behaviors, they can meet numerous needs at one point. And that's kind of how you get addicted to certain emotions and behaviors, by when they do meet 3 or 4 different needs. So it's not like one via one. Not, one doesn't equal one. A lot of times they equal numerous. So those are those first 4 that you're meeting no matter what right now, guaranteed. And then the last 2, the spiritual needs, which you're not going to meet no matter what. You're going to have to actually seek these out. And these are the ones that actually make you happy, fulfilled, long term. These are like the fulfillment and peace and happiness long term. And you're not going to do them unless you seek them out. And that is growth. So we'll say that's need number 5, growth. The need to be expanding, growing in any aspect of your life, whether that's, your family, or your physical body, or your finances, or you're learning a new skill, or you're getting a promotion. If you think back to a time in your life where you felt like the most kind of like mentally energetic, it's usually during a period of growth. And when you feel like you're not growing and you're just stagnant, you're like dying inside. You feel burnt out. You feel like you're just running the clock out. And so no matter how much you meet those first 4 needs, if you don't meet these next 2, you can still be unhappy and miserable and burnt out, and just feel like you're stagnant and running your days on earth out. So growth. And then number 6 is contribution, which is the need to contribute beyond yourself, to contribute to human race, to other people. And that's like gift giving versus gift receiving. That's like buying the person behind you in the drive-thru a coffee and then driving away, and just that feeling of like, wow, like I did something for not just myself. And that is gonna provide you with meaning in life and fulfillment and happiness. So those are those first, well, those are the only 6, but that's the first time we talked about it.
Yeah, and I think that was a great explanation, and obviously we'll touch on that more in future times that we hopefully talk about this, because it really does relate. For me, I felt like once I learned them and once I truly understood them, and like anything, once you practice them, once you practice observing them, you can't unsee them.
Right.
Like they literally are just everywhere. So like an example, sort of what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about how much this has helped me in my job. So many times, especially during the pandemic, before so as well, but I mean, a lot of this I learned in the early days of the pandemic. You get to somebody's house or you show up in somebody's hospital room and they're so angry. They're just so angry at you. And, it's so easy to take that personally at 3:00 in the morning when you're also tired and you've been running off your ass and you're like, come on, like, I'm just trying to help you here, But it's like, they're angry at you in a time of COVID when everything is shut down. They're not having their needs met. Now they're calling you to their house at 3:00 in the morning because their family member is sick and or dying, and they have zero control over a situation,
Zero
zero
certainty.
certainty of a situation. So that was like an immediate recognition of me of like, oh shit, here's a need where that gas tank has gone down to zero. Okay, so now that I understand that, I don't have to take that personally. Let me give them some control back. So that could be like, you know, in non-emergent cases, would you like to go to this hospital or would you like to go to this hospital? Or why don't you tell me the easiest way to move your family member because you're the expert here. Using words and situations or like things like that, you know, is just an easy way to give people back some certainty and some control. And it's amazing how when you give people just a sniff of that control back in situations where they feel complete uncertainty or complete helplessness, how much the dynamic of a call or just a situation can change.
Right. And yeah, so realizing that in your job, that's the certainty. There's no bigger uncertainty than death,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So you're dealing in the biggest uncertainty every day, and you're learning how to come in and provide some certainty to people, and that's going to make your job easier. And providing certainty doesn't mean just you taking control. That means you kind of helping them get some control back without giving yours away, because obviously you have a job to do, right?
There's situations where, you know, in less acute situations, when I've got time, I'll try to give people all the certainty that they need. I'm like, great, why don't you tell me? I literally will use words like, well, you're the expert here, you know this person. I'm just walking in, I just met you 5 minutes ago. Why don't you tell me what you think is best? And then, yeah, again, just how quickly that changes the dynamic is truly like amazing. There's other situations where, of course, I have to be the most certain person in the room, and people are looking at you to make decisions and be the most certain person in the room. But it's just this ebb and flow of dynamic of understanding these human needs, and once you see them, you can't unsee them.
Yeah. Hopefully during the first few, episodes, there'll be like some aha moments where it's like, oh, when I felt zero connection, when I moved to a new city and I had no friends, why was I depressed? It's like, oh, maybe I was using that to meet my need here. Or when you have no outlets for variety because everything's closed down, why did I start to watch UFC? It's like, well, because that's the only thing that was on. I needed some variety. Or why am I addicted to Instagram? Well, because it provides you variety and you can get connection from it.
with other
You can
people.
feel significant by either posting your own pictures or by knocking other people's buildings down, by getting like into little nasty arguments.
Oh yeah, fighting with people in the comments, that's always good.
Yeah, fighting with people in the comments meets a lot of needs in the worst possible ways, but there's reasons why people do it. It gives them connection with others. If you get to tag team and knock other people down, you feel more significant. You feel like maybe you're making a difference in the world by, putting the bad people away, quote unquote bad people, whoever they may be. But these last 3 years, it should really stand out to you of like, okay, people are doing things for reasons. Their needs portfolios took huge hits, and then they're just left with, drinking, smoking, gambling, anger, depression, rioting, knocking other people down, knocking other people's buildings down. So if you can understand why you do things and why other people do things, then it really is just such a cheat code. And we're not psychic, we're not, we're not seeing ghosts, we're not like
I'm a little
Haley,
psychic.
we're not Haley Joel Osborne. But once you do see it, you can't unsee it, and you get to learn that things are driving people. And if you meet a person and you can immediately know what's driving them, then maybe you can help provide that, and your interaction's going to go so much smoother for sure.
And you alluded to this a little bit at the start, but just to reiterate, like, you will, because these are sort of mandatory, they will be met no matter what, whether it is positively or negatively. So if you are aware of them and then you can choose to meet them in a more positive way, like anyone, if given the choice, I think would choose to do something positively as opposed to negatively. But if you don't know why, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, like, how are you going to know how to do that,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, just learning about why people do things the way that they do, and then also why you do things the way that you do as well, right?
I think back to some Instagram video I saw a couple years ago of gas station footage of some lady putting gasoline into a plastic bag. She didn't have a jerry can, and she's like, I'm gonna put this into a plastic bag, and then tying up that plastic bag and putting it in her trunk, and then watching all the gas just spill everywhere in her trunk. And it's like, that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They don't know what gas tanks they have, what gas goes in them, and they're just hoping to Christ it doesn't spill all over the trunk of the car. But these last 3 years, it has been spilling all over the trunk of the car,
Right.
because you're left with your own devices. Everything's, kind of gone topsy-turvy, and now you have more economic uncertainty, and it's time to take ownership for not just your finances or your nutrition, but your emotions as well, and that's what we're hoping to provide.
Right. What are maybe some ways that you feel like you meet your needs? You don't have to go through all of them, but maybe some ways that you meet your needs in positive ways, and or ways that you've met your needs in negative ways in the past.
Well, depression was the big one. That was, like I just went through, that met 4 of those personality needs, right? That met my certainty, that met my variety, that met my connection with myself. This was a lot of times like before I met you, which I think I was 24 when I met you. When you stuck your tongue down my throat on the dance floor.
Okay.
But,
that's for another episode.
But I didn't have a lot of connection, so I would use depression to meet connection. But these days, I obviously connect with you. I make sure I keep my variety up through different ways, like rock climbing, or I have a lot of clients that I get to see every day, so I get to connect with them. I have more certainty in my life, both financially. Financially is the biggest one, and when you have more certainty in your life, you don't have to get it through other ways, other disempowering ways. But yeah, I'm a connection guy. So.
And maybe it's, sorry to cut you off, but maybe it's worthwhile to say here, like, while you need all of these, there's certain people are always going to maybe gravitate towards 1 or 2 that are going to be their top needs, knowing that you still need all of them. You there's going to be, if like connection is 50%, you're still going to need like 20% variety and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
think about like a limousine, where long car, and on the driver's side you have 2 tanks, and then on the passenger side you got 4 other tanks, and you might have these 2 needs that are on the driver's side, and you fill those up first. Those are your 1 or 2 top needs, and then if there's any gas left over, you're going to go fill up those other ones. But you might have 1 or 2 that just kind of is your personality, how you were raised, what's driving you in that moment. I can guarantee you, if my wife Jenna starts having health problems and my certainty starts to go down in her, and control and like safety and her well-being, all I'm going to be wanting is certainty. So in different kind of areas in your life and different times in your life, it will change. If you go to a new country to start a new job, you're probably just going to want connection and certainty, to get your roots in the ground. So it will change, but a lot of times you will have one or two that's your driving focus right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good intro. I think that's a good start. Introduction to human needs.
Yeah.
A little intro about us. And yeah, just going forward with the instruction manual. I mean, we've sort of talked along the walks too of like, okay, so if we were going to make a podcast, like what would every episode entail, you know, because there's so, like, human needs aside, that's just one fraction of what you need to know and understand to be a fully functional adult human, right? We've talked about, you alluded to a little bit about like nutrition and finances, but there's also, you know, we can get into like breath work and movement and family dynamics and understanding family dynamics and connection with the outdoors. Like there's just so much. So yeah, I don't know. This was fun. This was good.
It should be. It should be a never-ending manual.
Yeah, of course.
Because
just keep adding pages.
More information is coming out about everything all the time, right?
Sure.
That's the best part about 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So no rhyme or reason as far as the order, but just like page after page of like.
Hopefully keep adding pages to the book of things that that we find helpful for ourselves, or things that we've learned in our own lives that help us be happy, full-ish human beings. And if we get the opportunity to share that, again, with even just keeping this so we remember ourselves or sharing it with family and friends, then hopefully it's just a little pebble that keeps sprinkling outwards, I suppose, or rippling outwards.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.